Hey everybody, I'm that one guy, and I wanted to create a series of videos to go over the Weakauras I've created. The whole purpose of the Weakauras is obviously to help you better understand your spec and hopefully help you play better as a result, but also to gamify the game. Because WoW does present you with some spell alerts for the specs you play, but not all. And so that leaves you looking for ways to identify if a certain buff or debuff is active. And that's where Weakauras can come in play. And I wanted to do more than just have an icon with a timer in it, right? I wanted to try to present you with visual effects that make it feel more like a video game and immerse you more into the spec you're playing. At least that's the idea. So in these videos, I'm going to go over the Weakauras I've created, how I intend for them to work, and show you how you can modify them if you'd like. So whether you've already found my Weakauras, or you're looking for some for a certain spec, or you just want to have a better idea of how Weakauras work in general, hopefully these videos will help you with that. For this video, we're going to talk about my Retribution Paladin Weakauras, or Ret. This is one where I definitely went more like on the gamify approach, and I also have some indecision, and you'll see both. So for starters, let's just look at stuff that's going to be in the general Paladin class abilities, and those will be packed into Holy, Proc, and Ret. So if you download all three of them, you'll probably have three, right? You'll have some duplicates of this, and you don't need those. As you can see, I already have some duplicates of stuff. So again, if you see Paladin class abilities 3 different times, you don't need it 3 different times. You can just delete it. That probably means you're going to have some silly overlap. But as far as like gamifying the game, wings, right? The Paladin ability, right? So whenever you're Holy, Proc, or Ret, and you proc wings or Sentinel as well, and even when you do Crusade for Retribution, you'll see wings, right? Just because, it's not really going to change, and you already expect it to be there. But as far as like gamifying the game, I thought those were some cool looking symbols and would be fun to kind of have in there every time you proc wings. So also, when you're Ret, you have a talent that actually lets it proc from just spending Holy Power, so it can pop up from there too. So just something that makes it feel more like a video game. I think it's fun every time I see it. Again, it doesn't really change what you do, but it's fun. The standard Divine Purpose is on there for all of them, and then a cast bar and a mana bar. The part that there's a little indecision is with Holy Power. I have it in 2 different places, right? And I'll explain why it's red in a second. It's normally not red, and I'll show you that it's actually not red, okay? But in 2 different places. One, because I'm always trying to keep my eyes on like my targets and the playing field so that I can see the mechanics and things like that, make sure I'm not standing any swirlies. And the more often my eyes are up and on this part of my screen, right, the better. Whereas if I'm looking down to track stuff, there's more likely I could miss something, or I'll come back to it late and not have as much time to react to it as I would have had I just been staring at it the whole time. So that's why it's in 2 places. I'm always so used to looking down here, but I wanted to be able to like keep my eyes more towards my target. So I started to try these, and I don't like it. I'll say I haven't play tested it for hours upon hours upon hours. Like I do play this alt pretty regularly, but I don't know if that's ever gotten to a point where it'd be annoying. So far, I'm liking it okay. The reason it's red is for the tier set. If you proc the tier set, right, for Paladin, which in Season 2 of The War Within means you're going to refund your Holy Power, they'll be red so that you know you have it. There's also, for Ret, a progress bar for it, but again, I feel like if I'm staring there, I'm less likely to look down here, and I'll notice the red flashy stuff. But as for like Ret's Weakauras, I went with like, again, a heads-up display, kind of like Fire, and you kind of seeing that some here. Starting off with one, the hero talent for Templar, where this will show if you have that castable Light's Deliverance, right? And I have it procced up to 50 already, so you'll see when I go into combat, this means that I've gotten those 50 stacks, and that whenever Wake of Ashes on cooldown, I'll get another Templar ability for free. So what that looks like is that symbol, right? This is from the regular procced Wake of Ashes is there. And now, there it is again though, right? Letting me know, without having to check on my bars, like, do I have that ability? It's just there, and I know I can use it, okay? The other things that you're seeing, and again, you may or may not like it, depending on how much stuff you like on your screen, but again, I'm trying to keep my eyes there, and again, I'm going for like more of a game type feel, and so instead of just icons, you'll see this Judgment and Blade of Justice, right? If they're there, that means you can use those abilities. Same thing with Hammer of Wrath or something that'd be proc from Final Verdict. If you see those icons, Judgment, Hammer of Wrath, and Blade of Justice are usable. Which again, if you're trying to min-max and make sure you're keeping things on cooldowns, having a visual pop up on your screen would be helpful. I think so, at least it's been helpful to me. So that's something that I've been playing with, like I said, on some other Weakauras. If you find it too obnoxious, you don't like it, you can just right-click this and delete, or go to load and set to never, right? Because you're like, maybe I'll like it later, maybe I'll wish I had it, so I don't want to delete it. But here's the thing, if you ever change anything and you wish you didn't, just go back to the website and re-download the pack. It's going to be okay. But that's what I do. I've contemplated maybe changing the size of those a little bit, these two just a little, so that they're maybe a smidge smaller, but at the same time, I think when you're in the cluster of stuff, if you are trying to get that to be a notice to you that, hey, you have those abilities, making them too small can be a problem. Art of War, again, I turn spell opacity to 0, so that just means I recreate quite a few of the base stuff that Blizz already does, but I've made these a little skinnier, and I probably even moved them out a little bit, which is why, again, I like playing with 0% spell opacity and recreating my own things, because then I have more control over where they are, how big they are, things like that. The other things, and this is where you might see some overlap and might get annoyed because they're in the same spot as Final Verdict, is for the two talents Empyrean Power and Empyrean Legacy. Empyrean Legacy is that ability that, when you cast your Judgment, your next Final Verdict will also cast Divine Storm. This circle, right, this empty circle, means that you no longer have that debuff, which means your next Judgment will allow your Final Verdict to cast Divine Storm. If you don't see that circle, that means no Judgment proc, Judgment isn't going to do that because you still have that debuff. When that circle's gone, right, or when that circle's present and you do press Judgment, it would be filled and the circle would go away with that icon. That just means, hey, your next Final Verdict is going to cast Divine Storm. And then nearly identical, well, it is identical, is this. Its own separate thing, they're the same. So if you ever find yourself playing with Empyrean Legacy and Empyrean Power, that might get pretty annoying, and we should talk about maybe choosing a different icon or moving those. But this one, Empyrean Power, just means you have your free Divine Storm that's procced. So again, instead of having to check your bars to see if you've gotten that ability or see that it's lit up on your bars, keeping your eyes up where your targets are, where the puddles are, where the things you have to step out of are, right? You'd see that and know, oh, I can cast Divine Storm. The other things just being Execution Sentence, right? So just the debuff tracker for Execution Sentence, and then these two that I've been playing around with. And if you have a better idea for these, let me know. But these are just stuff that I've borrowed from other people and modified a little bit, probably just in color and then size and location. But Crusading Strikes, meaning when you take that talent that now it's just part of your regular auto attacks, and you build up Holy Power after the second one. And then the Divine Resonance is from Divine Toll, right? The tick mark is when it's going to cast another Judgment. And again, if you're trying to min-max and not overcap your Holy Power and know when you're going to get additional Holy Power, having those visuals, I think is pretty helpful. If I do it really slow, right? There's the Divine Resonance thing going. You can see when it got to that Y mark, it cast more. You had Crusading Strikes go, and now you have that go. You're going to have Crusading Strikes go, and you're going to have Divine Resonance go, okay? And you can see underneath it the whole time, Blade of Justice and Judgment being on cooldown. Or not on cooldown, I should say, right? So that's kind of the intention of that. Your eyes can stay there the whole time. You know what abilities you have available or don't have available. You know when you're going to get additional Holy Power from Crusading Strikes. And look there, I procced the tier set. So when they're red, that means you have the tier set. When they're not red, you don't, right? It's just back to normal. And then again, this means you can cast the hero talent, right, from Templar, the Hammer of Light, and then whenever you would get to 50 stacks, right, you'd be able to cast it again for free, and that image would come back. But that's pretty much it, right? Again, the idea being, like, I want to keep my eyes on my screen as much as possible. I want to know what abilities I have available to me, and look, there's my free Hammer of Light, okay? I want to know what abilities are available to me. I want to know what my Holy Power is going to be. things like that. The only thing that changes or is a little different, again depending on the talents you pick, would be Judgment and Hammer of Light. Sorry, Judgment and Blade of Justice. If you pick the abilities, where'd they go? Oh, I'm blind. Here it is. Where Blade of Justice has 2 charges. And Judgment has 2 charges. Let's say you have both of those or either of them. Those Weakauras are going to change, right? Those that you saw, right, that had a little Blade of Justice and Judgment, it's going to be the same ones, except now they're red. When you have 2 charges, they'll be red. When you have 1 charge, it'll be that same icon that you saw previously. But again, just something, instead of having to add like a stacks number or additional icons or additional charges, you can use the exact same image where your eyes are already looking, but now you'll know if you have 1, 2, or none just from essentially color coding. So that's it as far as it goes. If you have different ideas or anything else for Ret, maybe you want something that lets you know an execution sentence, Wake of Ashes, Divine Toll, and stuff like that. Maybe you'd like to know when those are off cooldown and usable instead of having to look at your bars or somewhere else. But let me know what you think about that Holy Power, the Crusading Strikes, and the Divine Resonance. If you have different or better ideas that you'd like to try, I'm open to them, right? This is just for people to have fun in the game and play. It's not like everybody has to use it exactly as I intended. And I understand maybe it's not a perfect science. So hope this has been helpful to you and enjoy playing WoW. Again, I hope you found that helpful. I do intend to make a Weakura pack for every spec. So if I haven't made one for the spec that you play or that you'd like to see, just comment that down below. Again, I do intend to make one for every spec, but if I see people asking for it or really wanting one, I'll probably get to it quicker than if I just do it on my slow, leisurely pace. I hope it will enhance your gameplay. Like I said, it's all about gamifying the game and making it more fun and more immersive for you, while also helping you improve as a player, because the information that you need to react to is hopefully more readily available. If you have any other questions about this Weakura pack that you just watched or any other ones, again, please feel free to comment. I try to be as interactive as possible in my YouTube section. And that's it. I hope you have a great day.